can't beat a career as a Viking, leaping off your longboat with your best mates and hurling axes into a crowd of terrified villagers before torching every building in sight. Good work, lads. Mine's a pint. Assassin's Creed Valhalla promises to fully immerse you in the bloodthirsty professional life of an 8th century Viking. But what exactly will you be getting up to in the game when not absorbed in the daily grind of pillaging and ransacking? Well, it turns out, after having spent an afternoon playing the game, a bunch of really weird stuff, as the game is packed full of outlandish activities that make actually raiding a coastal settlement and killing all the occupants seem like the most mundane thing in the world. Well, unless you're this dude. Here are the weirdest things we found you can do in Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Well, if it isn't Eivor of the Raven clan.
You might assume that all Viking protagonist Eivor would need to settle a dispute was a hand axe and to be within axe range of your torso. But in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, the game presents an alternative way to test your mettle, and that's with a minigame based on the actual historic custom known as flighting, in which a series of brutal verbal burns are delivered in verse.
I've heard all the rumours that Eivor the Dane is a coward, a cur, and a leech. Perhaps you can swing that wee axe on your belt, but I doubt you've much talent for speech.
The poetic exchange of insults was practiced mainly between the 5th and 16th centuries, and is referenced in texts like Beowulf and Old Norse poems. For instance this, which we assume is an absolutely ruthless burn on Freyja by Loki, but we'd need a master's degree in Old Norse literature to know for sure. Arguably, the nearest modern equivalent to flighting is a rap battle, and indeed that's more or less how these contests of wit play out in Valhalla, as you race a time limit to find a witty response to your opponent's barbs. Here we are facing down one such opponent, an absolute clown known only as Anglo-Saxon man.
To all those whom I speak, they say Eivor's a clod.
Then you're speaking to fools and their knowledge is flawed.
Well, not bad. They say you're a coward who runs from a fight.
And they're sorely mistaken. I'm known for my might.
The fact that the challenge is multiple choice certainly makes picking out the wittiest repartee much easier, though we reckon Eivor could stand to be a bit more savage in her replies. Perhaps a couplet about how Anglo-Saxon man sounds like the world's most boring superhero.
Silent whispers all claim that you're terribly dense.
Then you've clearly misheard them. My wit is immense.
Oh, you looked out with that one.
Flighting is a good way of making money, boosting your charisma stat in-game, and most importantly lets chumps like this one know you're an intellectual powerhouse not to be messed with, though we recommend not undermining your show of strength by tripping over a dog as you walk away. Great, now I need to think of a dozen witty rejoinders that rhyme with dog and trip. Suggestions in the comments, please.
Your father brought me here long ago, when we were just 19 winters. Together we stacked stones into cairns.
These?
Yes. Think of this as a test of mind and wit. Stack the cairn stones high and wide into any shape you like.
There are many reasons not to want to live in 8th century Britain. Constant conflict, no modern medicine, and over 1,000 years separate you from the invention of Tetris. And yet, those living in these harsh and brutal times did find ways of unlocking the soothing qualities of block stacking, or at least that's what Assassin's Creed Valhalla would have you believe, as it introduces the Viking hobby of cairn stacking.
So, go on. Try it yourself.
Cairns are piles of rocks used in ye olden days as waypoints or burial markers. Here they serve as engaging physics puzzles in which you must stack a bunch of oddly shaped rocks up to a certain height, in a sort of peaceful, mind-emptying challenge, the undertaking of which is its own reward.
How do I win?
You win by playing, and a quiet mind is your reward. Let the air and nature's beauty soothe you.
But seriously, what do I win? Do I unlock a flossing emote? What's the deal? It might seem like a trivial diversion, but making these awkwardly shaped rocks stay where you tell them to is surprisingly tricky. What? Oh well, at least there's a good view, and while you might fail a few times, nothing can beat the feeling of finally finding the right balance. Of course, it's only then you realise the true balance you were searching for was the balance inside of you. Oh, what the hell? Nature's beauty is about to get hurled into the sea.
You're no fool. You know there are some questions you need answering before you will even consider investing dozens of hours in a game, and that one of those questions is, can you pet the dogs? Which is why it gives us no small pleasure to reassure you, the viewer, that not only can you pet the dogs, we're talking full body hugs here. And what's this, a little cat? Oh yes, oh what a good little cat. But something tells us the animals you can cuddle with in these rustic settlements wouldn't be so eager to leap into your arms if they'd seen what you get up to outside the city walls, because my god, Eivor is a stone-cold animal murder machine. No creature is safe, be they rabbits, deer, fish, birds, big birds, or even the seals which can be found around the coast, frolicking with the playful abandon of a community that's never had a Viking stroll in and bullseye one of its members for 556 critical damage. Truly, there is not a beast that walks, swims, or flies across 8th century England that should not fear coming across Eivor and being pulled apart for loot. And yet, there are some quarries even this Viking warrior shouldn't tangle with lightly. The mythical beasts that can be found if you're willing to venture into the Old English wilderness. Black Shuck, said to roam the coastline of East Anglia, is frequently depicted in folktales as a shaggy black dog of gigantic size, sometimes described as friendly to those who happen upon it, and sometimes as an omen of death. We'll let you make your own mind up which version they went with for Valhalla. These battles will test your combat prowess and force you to fight strategically, but are also a great opportunity to kick a legendary dog hard in the face. Find this beast and you get the privilege of knowing that the mythical Black Shuck was a real living creature all along. Win and you get the privilege of knowing you are the reason it isn't anymore. Also 2 skill points. Worth it.
In the initial fight, I came upon Kjotve, cowering in an empty house. He did not see me, and I came within 2 arms lengths of him. I could have slain him! A fast stroke of my axe, ending our troubles. But I held back. Why? Because I remembered my oath to Eivor.
If you want proof that Vikings were great storytellers, just look at the enduring quality of their stories, like the one where Loki the trickster god disguised himself as Captain America. You can't beat the classics. The Viking penchant for tall tales has found its way into Assassin's Creed Valhalla in a form that will be familiar to fans of the series. Whereas previous games let you hear a rousing song from the crew of your ship, Valhalla gives you the option instead of having one of your raiders regale you and the crew with a story.
We need an epic tale.
I don't raise the sail here. Some years ago, I took the sea with a sword dancer called Cairn.
Often these Viking stories tell of your previous exploits and adventures, though don't be surprised if some of your crew members get a bit salty with you in the retelling.
It was a fool's errand. But Eivor demanded we strike, and I am not one to disobey my superior.
Well, Dag, you are one to be chucked over the side if you don't mind that mouth of yours. Flattering stories only, please. These stories are a great way of passing the time as you speed towards your next objective, or slowly work your way off a sandbank that you clumsily sailed into.
Kjolgolv! I can compose a more beautiful poem by belching than you could with your tongue and fine words.
And if you do prefer something with a little less narrative, don't worry, singing is still present if you prefer songs to storytelling. And holy hell, your crewmates have some sweet pipes on them, not to mention studio-grade reverb.
For those who fight, for those who fall, Warlord weaves his web of fear, each man gets his fate and share, a blood-red surge, the warrior shield.
That's it, I'm sailing this longship to Island Records. I think we can bag a 5-album deal.
As you probably already guessed from the magic dog, that's the one, Assassin's Creed Valhalla isn't a game that shies away from the paranormal, and there are plenty of spooky happenings to be stumbled upon in Old England, and we don't just mean the supernatural speed with which your crew arrives when you summon them. And there they are. Creepy. Even weirder are the cursed artifacts you might find hidden away on your travels. Secret evils that are made a little easier to hone in on by a crescendo of eerie music as you stray into their vicinity. Music that very much says, hey buddy, you should consider staying away from these ruins. And then goes on to say, okay, I'm disappointed you chose not to stay away from these ruins, but for God's sake don't eat any mushrooms you find on the floor here. Shut up, music, you're not the boss of me. Assuming that, unlike us, you manage not to poison yourself on arrival, you can undertake to locate the source of the evil aura. This might involve some platforming and puzzling, but again, pay attention to the game's sound and the impact the cursed item is having on your vision, and you should be able to find what's amiss. Ah, a cursed symbol mounted on a stag's head. There's your problem. Now, where were those mushrooms? All this defeating evil has made me hungry.
I wager you couldn't drink more than me if you tried.
A fool's wager.
A challenge nonetheless. What say you?
I will drink you under the table.
8th century Vikings likely didn't see hard drinking so much as a hobby as a way of life, which is why in Assassin's Creed Valhalla you can get absolutely leathered with alarming frequency.
Let us feast, drink, and forget our pain!
For example, whenever you find one of these massive tubs of booze lying around. Drink with care though. The booze effects in these games don't last too long, but they might make you seasick, and there's always the risk you'll end up getting trapped in conversation with a fellow drunk.
Look! The moon! It moves untroubled now, but one day it will be eaten by a giant wolf and the nights will be black forevermore.
Are you all right?
That's a risk you'll have to run at one point in this Viking sim, however, when we attended a wedding, which needless to say featured dancing, speeches, killing a pig for some reason, a fight to the death, and a drinking contest.
Let us see how you fare against the ale beast of East Anglia. And we'll make it interesting. Put your silver where your mouth is. What say you?
I accept.
To win, tap a button to an increasingly speedy rhythm to monster a horn of ale, with the first to drain 3 horns claiming the prize.
You're going to stop.
That prize being all the coins wagered on the contest and a banging 2-day headache into the bargain. Brilliantly, your chugging, which is soundtracked by a gang of chanting onlookers, will occasionally be interrupted by the need to keep your balance. Manage to keep your footing and pour enough brew down your gullet, and you can win the day. Though, let's face it, you've probably had too much to drink at this point to behave graciously in victory.
The ale here, it's strong. But I am stronger!
But hey, the night's just beginning. What's next for these 2 lads on the town? Ditch the wedding and steal a traffic cone? Oh, okay. Aw, weddings, eh?
Hearty. Fallen warrior, neglected by the Valkyries.
Oh fiddlesticks, a perfectly pleasant stroll in the countryside ruined by happening upon an artfully posed corpse worthy of an episode of Hannibal.
This one suffered a great deal before dying.
This happens to Eivor on the regular, or at least something like it does, because this is the kickoff of an optional super tough boss battle.
Come you hither to pay your respects to the great and brave King Lirion.
We've only done one of these fights, but we can assume, based on what we have seen, they'll be rooted in very old British history. For instance, this King Lirion is a legendary king of the Britons whose supposed reign dates back to 8th century BC, and who formed the inspiration for Shakespeare's tragedy King Lear. And oh look, this is Cordelia, one of Lear's daughters. I don't remember this scene from the play, but it's been a while since I saw it, and now that I'm watching it unfold here, I guess I don't have to ever again.
Darkness must reign, and you must fade within it.
Cordelia appears to have used her vintage old Britain magic to trap Eivor in a glowing blue arena of death, a fitting location for what will be a tough test of your battling skills. Cordelia has a health bar the length of the Thames, and if you don't dodge out the way of her teleporting attacks quickly enough, she'll chop your own hit points down like a sushi chef filleting a salmon. Funny, Shakespeare didn't mention any of that in his version. Expect ghostly projection attacks that will kick your butt if you've left yourself without enough stamina to dodge out the way. And in a punishing second phase, lightning strikes that require you to keep half an eye on the floor to avoid where they'll hit. Oh, and did we mention this grab attack? That's just about the most painful looking thing we can imagine happening to a spine. Good luck explaining this one to your chiropractor, Eivor. At the point where we attempted this boss fight, we had only played the game for a few hours, but nevertheless, we get the sense that these battles will definitely test you. Before we finally got the killing blow, we were killed several times, or since this is Assassin's Creed, perhaps we should say desynchronized. Weird, I think desynchronized is how my chiropractor described my spine after that grab attack.
So those were some of the weird and fun things that you can do in upcoming Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Which things catch your eye? Which are the first things I'm gonna be hugging all those cats. You know that. Let us know what you're most looking forward to in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this, do subscribe, hit that like button, and maybe you want to find out about Watch Dogs Legion? Yeah? Well, go over to Outside Xbox and check out their video on some of the mean things that you can do in that game that are actually kind of funny. If you enjoyed this, please do subscribe for way more stuff from us in future, and we'll see you next time. Bye!